No, never mind. Wait, they're doing it off of that? They're doing it off of that? Okay.
Long time no see. How are you? All right. All right.
I don't mind me walking in front of you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and we will resume the year-end availability with Toronto FC President Bill Manning, followed by the introduction of the new head coach and sporting director. So we go ahead with questions for Bill Manning.
Great, great. Hi, everyone. Glad to be here. It's an exciting day for our club. Josh, good to see you. I thought you forgot about TFC for a while, so good to see you back in person. Beezer, I think Neil, James, I haven't seen you in a long time. So good to see all you guys. And we'll take some questions and then formally introduce Bob as our new head coach and sporting director.
Hi, Bill.
Hey, Beezer.
Just on the surface, what are your thoughts about, Bob being here and Bob as a head coach and Bob sort of taking over this particular team?
Yeah, I'm really excited. Bob is someone that I've known from a distance for 20 years and have greatly admired him as a coach, his accomplishments, his will to win. We have never really crossed paths over the last 20 years, but in our business, through mutual friends and people we've known, I've heard such good things, and you see the accomplishments that he's had. And I've always said to myself, if I had an opportunity for one of my teams, whether it was in Salt Lake or here in Toronto, and if Bob Bradley was available and had a contract, he was a guy I would want to run one of my teams. And the circumstances allowed for that this year. And, when LAFC's season ended, I requested permission to speak to him and had an opportunity to meet him in person. And we spent about 3.5 hours together, and things came together very quickly after that. And I think he is the right guy at the right time to lead this club. And I'm really excited about it, Beezer.
Hi, Bill.
Hey, Neil.
Can you just explain to us what the head coach and sporting director role means? Will there be a GM? Will he have people assisting him? Or will he be in charge of player personnel?
Yeah, so we're not going to replace the general manager role. The sporting director role is a title a number of European clubs have. Some in MLS have that as well. Essentially, it's the on-field, supervision of all on-field operations from academy to second team to first team, as well as player personnel and the makeup of our roster. Certainly Bob are going to collaborate he and I on a lot of things. We have a very good support system, I believe, that's in place, and Jason Hernandez and Jack Dodd and Devin Plore. Bob is going to put his own stamp on this franchise, and I look forward to him doing that because I think we need that injection of new blood, and he has some very clear ideas of what it takes to put together a winning franchise, and he and I shared a lot of the same visions for what we want. And so part of this is getting his expertise on what it takes to build out a roster to win championships, and so that is part of it, Neil.
Thanks. Hey, Bill. Speaking of that roster, can you set the record straight? Will Josie be back next season?
Josie's under contract.
There's been a number of reports that have indicated that his contract has been bought out.
No, not at all.
Okay, so you plan on having Josie in the roster next season?
Look, I'll say this. I think everything is open right now with us. We've come off a terrible season. And, I think we're going to look up and down this roster at every single player, including our DPs, our TAM players, our homegrowns, everyone. And Bob's going to have, obviously, a big say in what this roster is going to look like next year and going forward. So not Josie, not any of our players you can name. We're going to try to build this team to be back to being a championship contender. And players that are under contract, certainly they're under contract, but we're gonna make decisions going forward on who's going to be best to be on this team in the future.
Richie Larea and Jonathan Osorio just spoke, and these are two local players, but they also both expressed their desire to possibly test themselves abroad. Would you be open to possibly moving those two pieces that are admittedly core parts of this team, right?
Yeah, look, I think every player in Major League Soccer has dreams of playing in the Premier League or elsewhere. You know, just going to Europe doesn't mean it's a better level of soccer than MLS. There's lots of European leagues, and so I think that's something that every MLS player has. And we have a number of European players that come here to MLS that want to test out our league and you know, to play at our level, which over the last 5 years has increased greatly, and I think our global presence is much more than it was. So I just think it's natural that players think about what opportunities lie out there, and our job is to put the best team together. Richie and Jonathan are both key guys that we want to stay here. Richie's under contract. Jonathan has an option. We see them as anchors, and we're going to do what it takes to keep them here on this team and this roster going forward. You know, certainly we always will discuss players' aspirations, but I think what we're going to do going forward, I think both of these guys are going to want to be part of.
Bill, Bob represents the fourth coach since last November that the club has had. That's a lot of turnover, a lot of change. Obviously, his pedigree might be different than that of Javier, who's interim, and Chris before that. Are you going to rush into changes, or do you understand right now that much change is needed before the start of the next season, which is just 3 months away?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, you do a lot of self-reflection when you have tough times, and you look at decisions you made, and you kind of learn from those things. When I joined the organization in 2015, it had been an organization that had a lot of change and a lot of turmoil. And at that point, I felt it needed consistency and kind of a steady hand, and the results followed, and we did really well. We had a very good 5-year run. Right now, we need some change. And you know, what we were in the past is in the past, and we're gonna, you know, I'm looking forward to this next kind of 5-year journey as we go towards World Cup 26 here in Canada, which is, I think, going to be a seminal event for the sport. So yes, I think this roster is going to have some makeover, and you know, Bob is going to come in and he's going to put his stamp on this team, and you know, at this point, I do think that we need this injection of new blood and to kind of raise the bar again for our club. So like I said, the circumstances are in need of that right now, different than when I first arrived in 2015.
Bill, you talk about change. Obviously, in this league, designated players play a huge role. Your 3 designated players this year, you know better than anybody. I think their salaries were over $10 million US. Do you have the right DPs to go ahead?
Look, great question, Neil. It's to win championships, you need your best players to be your best players, and they need to be on the field. We proved that here in 2017 and three finals in 4 years. When we got the most out of our designated players. I think this year was a tough year for all 3 of our designated players. Injuries, some off-field issues, and we were not able to utilize our designated players to win games. We didn't win a lot of games this year, and so going forward, it's imperative for us that our highest paid players are our biggest contributors. And if you look, you know, at the top teams in the league right now, they're getting the most out of their best players. And so that's something, how I'd respond to that, Neil, is we need to make sure our designated players are playing and giving us, you know, everything we're paying them for.
Bill, Alejandro said today that he would love to talk contract extension, you know, sooner than later, and he basically told us to ask you about it. So I'm asking you about it. I'm also asking about, he mentioned that, I think, I don't hope I wasn't lost in translation here, but he mentioned that he was given some psychological help this year. I don't know if that was with the help of the club, or maybe you can just comment on what he went through this year and how much confidence you have in him bouncing back in the upcoming season.
Look, Alejandro has been an important player for us, MVP last season. He had a tough year this year, both on and off the field. And as he knows, we will always support him on what he needs to perform. And whether that's off the field or whether it's, with our hands-on guys getting back on the field in his body. So, we hope that Alejandro comes back next season in the best shape of his career. I chatted with him about a month ago as we talked about his future, and then I spoke to him again this morning. We're going to send one of our strength and conditioning coaches over to Spain to spend time with him, both early on in the break and just prior to when he comes back. We want to see him get back to where he was in 2019 and 2020 when he was one of the top players in the league. And he's a very good person. He had some tough personal issues to deal with this year, and we're understanding of that. And I do think it affected his play. So we're hoping physically and mentally he comes back, ready to lead this team and be one of the leaders. And the four guys here today that spoke are all leaders on this team. And so we'll have those discussions. And I told him we'll have those discussions again in the spring. Once we kind of get things rolling, he obviously the relationship he's going to build with Bob is going to be important. But the most important thing is to get him back physically and mentally ready to play where he was in 2019 and 20.
Two-part question, Bill. I think the really low attendance numbers, especially towards the end of the season, were evident.
Yep.
Do you feel the need to sign players that won't just contribute on the field, but will also bring fans back and get fans excited? And what is your message to fans that may have lost faith in the club this season?
Yeah. Look, we made a decision, prior to coming back that we were going to allow our fans to keep, we have over 20,000 season ticket holders. And they had the option of keeping their money on, basically on account and kick it towards 2022. Or coming out this year. Certainly, we weren't in a good place on the field when we came back in July, and that, I think, weighed on a lot of people. I think there was some apprehension also for people to come out into a large gathering, and about 85% of our fans kept their money on account towards next year. So the good sign is we have, a lot of returning season ticket holders that are going to come back next year in full force. The fans that did come out this year, we really appreciate that they did, and it's unfortunate we did not give them a lot to cheer for, and I'm disappointed by that. I thought when we came back from Florida, we had a window where we had 5 of 7 games at home. The first game was New England, and we won that game 3-2 on the road, Javi's first game, and then we actually had 5 of the next 6 at home, and we tied a bunch of those games. And that's when I knew we weren't going to be a playoff team. And I think a number of our fans kind of said, okay, let's stay home. Let's wait till next year. I think you've seen by the last few days, we're going to be decisive, and we're gonna be bold as we go into next year. I'd rather our actions speak for themselves than be up here and talk to you about all the changes that we're going to make. But this year wasn't acceptable for us, and we're going to, with Bob on board, like I said, I think he's going to put his stamp on this team, and this is a guy who's a winner, and we look forward to what he's going to bring. The second part, I think you had, or no? No. Okay, got it.
Bill, you had a better view of this team than we did. You got to see both sides of the curtains. Whenever we talked to opposition coaches ahead of your games, they all said, this is a dangerous team. Just look at the talent they have at the roster, on the roster. I know many things happened to this team the last 18 months, but do you have any explanation for why things went so far south this year, from second in the Supporters' Shield to 26th? With that roster, it seems quite unbelievable.
Yeah, no, it does. you know, back in my Salt Lake days, my GM Garth Lago and I used to have a saying: the players always give you the answers. And our roster this year gave us the answers, that it wasn't good enough, and that we do have to have a makeover on this team. Look, I think the past 2 years, we went through an incredibly difficult time. I think Montreal did, and Vancouver as well, and you saw coaching changes in all three franchises, three clubs. We were away for a long portion of the year last year in Florida, then Hartford, Connecticut, and I think the stability of Greg Vanney and his staff helped us stay together and have what was a very good season. Two leaders, Laurent Simon and Pablo Piatti, veteran players that didn't continue this year. In hindsight, you look back and you say, we really missed their leadership, because when the prospect of being away again this year in Florida, I think it weighed a lot on our players, and we did everything we could to try to make them comfortable and their families comfortable, but it was a lot. And I think it took away from their ability to compete on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis in MLS. Combine that with a new coaching staff. And in fairness to Chris Armas, he never had an opportunity to integrate himself into this club and build this club from this training ground, which, as you all know, is our home and is really a special place. It has a vibe here that I think is the heart and soul of our club. And I think, you know, we kind of came out and had a good result against Lyon. If you rewatch those games, we probably had no business beating Lyon. And I think that was some testament to some of our veterans and some of our young guys, that we had a new coach and this excitement, and they played above their heads a little bit in that game. And then reality set in, and we didn't perform well in the MLS season. And I think a lot of factors went into that. And so, you know, only history will really tell. And we'll look back 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and see if this was a blip or, you know, if it was part of a trend for this club. And I hope not the latter, because I think we're making the changes we need to make to return ourselves to be a championship contender. And this is a club, from when I first arrived, I set the bar high. We're a club that wants to compete for trophies, and this year we didn't. You know, we had a chance to win the Canadian Championship, and I thought Montreal deserved to win that game. They were better than us on the day. But a lot of factors, Neil, went into it, and you know, at the end of the day, we have to own it. It was not a good season, and but for me, you know, I'm trying really not to spend a lot of time. You learn from the past, but I don't want to dwell on the past. I want to move forward, and I'm excited about Bob being here, and you know, some of the makeover that we're going to have over the ensuing months.
We go next to Laura Armstrong. Go ahead.
Hey, Bill, thanks for the time. You mentioned Bob, like meeting with Bob and things coming together fairly quickly. How important was it to you that, you know, you got a new coach in place early on in the off season? And do you have any idea of where things stand with the rest of the coaching staff at this point?
So, hi, Laura. Good to hear from you. It was extremely important to get out in front of this. You know, back last December and January, there was a pretty extensive search for coaches that involved over 25 interviews with prospective coaches. That was not going to happen this time. You know, I had a profile in mind. As I mentioned, I've always admired Bob. He's someone that I actually hoped one day would coach one of the teams that I'm involved with. You know, I had my eye on the situation. I had heard that he was in the last year of his contract, but waited kind of in the background. And then once LAF season was over, I asked for permission and was granted permission, and took advantage of it. And I wanted to act quick. There was a few other prospects or potential coaches that I had in mind as well, two that I spoke with. I would say Bob was my number one target, but I had a couple other in mind in case I wasn't able to work things out with Bob. But it did come together fairly quickly. I think we share the same vision. And I think what he knows about Toronto, certainly having Michael being here and his brother Jeff Bradley, I think he had a really good feeling for our city and for our club. And so it was really, really important that we got him here sooner or later so he could get to work. The last thing I wanted to do was go into January. We start preseason January 19th, and I think we have 54 days. I counted till then, and so this was really important to get him on board sooner than later.
We have next John Molinaro.
Thanks, Alejandro. Hey, Bill. A two-part question, if I may. You've talked about, the need for change this season, for next season. I mean, not that I'm asking you to put a percentage on it, but I mean, from your perspective, do you see this as a major overhaul, minor tweaks? And I guess the second part of my question would be, when you triage it, when you look at sort of the team's on-field issues this year, I mean, what is the priority here? What do you see as the number one area that has to be fixed first?
Yeah. Hey, John, good to hear from you. Look, I don't want to use the word rebuild because a rebuild, is a 3 or 4 year process. I think this will be a bit of a transition year as Bob has the opportunity to make over this roster. We are going to look to make some pretty significant changes to upgrade our talent and to put together a roster that could play good football and winning football. And so, look, I don't think it's going to be just minor tweaks, John. I think we're going to try to be bold in what we can do to remake this team. The second part was glaring needs. Look, you can't win championships when you're letting up 2 goals a game, and so I think, and that doesn't just mean the defenders. How we defend as a team has to improve dramatically. The teams that win championships generally let up 1.3, 1.2 goals or less a game, and we were nowhere near that. So I would say that's probably the biggest glaring need. Whether that comes down to the coach and the system he puts in play, and also the talent that's on the field to play. But I would say certainly we're not going to win a lot of games letting up 2 goals a game. Or I think we finished at 1.88, something like that. That's not going to do us well. So that would be my answer to a glaring need.
We have next Michael Singh. Go ahead.
Thanks, Alejandro. Hey, Bill. Hope you're doing well.
Hi, Michael.
Just a few months ago, Bill, you guys signed Ali Curtis to a multi-year contract extension, and then now we get news that the club and Ali have mutually parted ways. Can you kind of give us an idea of what sort of happened there? And I guess to clarify, was this Ali approaching the club and leaving the club? Was this the club, getting rid of Ali? What happened there?
Oh, look, I think the last couple of years has been very difficult for Ali and his family. He had 2 homes that he was renting that the owners of the homes came back early and they got displaced. His family wound up moving back to New Jersey this year. And we had a chance to speak about his future. There was an opportunity that maybe was coming for him. And, he expressed his desire to look at that. And so, he gave his heart and soul for this club, and so he goes out with his head held high, and I think if this opportunity works out, I think it's going to be a really good role, and wish him the best. He's a really good man and someone that I think served us well, and so I don't think there was anything other than him trying to do what was best for his family.
Next question goes to Rafael. Go ahead.
Hi, Bill. Just first question. You mentioned 5 years a couple of times in this press conference. Is this also the length of the contract given to Bob? Can you shed some light on what length of contract was given to him?
No, so it's probably a little bit of corporate speak. When I first arrived, I had laid out a 5-year plan for our board of directors, for our club. And, we hit a lot of our key targets. And I've done that again now. I laid out a new 5-year plan for our board on where we want to get to and what we want to accomplish over the next 5 years. And it's something that is always with me, and it will be from day one all the way through to the end of 5 years. Signing on a coach, and Bob has a title sporting director as well, was a big part of that 5-year plan. And as we can build continuity again and consistency, and build a core of players that we can build around. And I think you'll see, that process has already started. It will continue over this offseason and into the season. So that's why that 5-year comes up. It's more my planning process, when I first arrived, and then now for what I'm calling this next chapter.
Right. And this year was obviously one of the worst years for the club. Did you feel any less confidence from MLSC? Did you have any more harder conversation with the board to kind of explain yourself and the part you took in this season and the makeup for the last season?
Yeah, look, nobody likes to lose, nobody more than me. It was very frustrating for everyone. And there's, a lot of mitigating circumstances, but, the challenge to me was, look, we need to fix this. And I started coming up with a bit of a thought process, and then, I mentioned this 5-year plan and what I believe we need to do to get back to being, I've expressed that we want to be one of the top clubs in the CONCACAF region, and within MLS. And I think we accomplished that from 2016 to 2020. And I think it's something we will do again. We have the resources, we have the support of this organization. And, it's what we're going to do about it, not as much, having pity or trying to find solutions to 2021. It's what are we going to do going forward, and to frankly, best position this club for what I think is going to be an amazing opportunity for this city and for this country to host the World Cup in 26, and who we want to be to capitalize on what should be just an increase in popularity in the sport itself. And so, it wasn't fun. It was not a fun year. It was a tough year, and I think we were all frustrated. Everyone was involved with the club.
We have next Michael Leach. Go ahead.
Thanks, Alejandro. Bill, I'm curious with the designation with Bob in terms of sporting director, and given some of the troubles that you had in 2021 and you making it clear that the general manager position will not be replaced, with that sporting director designation, and given your role also with the Argonauts, will you be getting, or will you be taking some of your duties with Toronto FC off your plate and designating those to Bob? Will you be taking a step back, I guess, maybe with this club?
No, not at all. I've actually, and I'll tell you, thank God for Pinball Clemens and what he's done, the culture for the Argonauts. It's actually allowed me to dive into TFC more so these last few months as we were looking to make over and establish, a new plan as we go into 2022, into this offseason. And the Argonauts are in a really good place now, and John Murphy is a big part of that. Obviously, Coach Dinwiddie, Chris Schufelt has taken on a bunch of additional business duties there. I look forward to collaborating with Bob on what we need to do to to drive this team going forward. And part of that expertise is Bob's ability to get players that are going to fit his profile for what he knows can win here at MLS and in CONCACAF. And I'm excited to give him the resources and the support and everything he needs to accomplish that. And certainly myself, having been around this league for a long time and having been a part of championship teams, I have a really good feel for what it takes to build a champion. And like I said, when we met, we wound up meeting for about 3.5 hours and share a lot of the same vision. But I want to be able to give Bob everything he needs to put a product in the field that's going to make our fans proud and make our organization proud.
Bill, understanding that when the team went to Florida, there was probably some undue stress on players and their bodies playing in an environment that they weren't used to, but the amount of injuries seems to just continue to build and build and build in this team over the last few years, particularly with your top players. What does the club need to do to address these injuries and make sure your best players stay on the pitch?
Yeah, and Josh, it's an excellent question. Injuries are challenging, and if you look at our best seasons, we've been relatively injury-free. 2018, we had a catastrophe of a year when it came to injuries. I think we had Josie out, we had Victor out, we had Justin Morrow out, Chris Mabinga out, Drew Moore out. We weren't going to win a lot of games with all those guys out, starting players. This year as well, we talked about our 3 DPs not being on the field. I don't think any of them played more than 50% of our minutes. Maybe Soteldo did, maybe about 55, 60%. We had a staff that had been in place that won championships, and we had a good run led by Jim Liston. Jim left for LA Galaxy. We brought in Pierre Beru, who is highly credentialed and actually has a background with Bob, which we're excited about, that they have the opportunity to work together again. We have a new strength and conditioning coach. And we still experienced some challenges in 2021 like we did in 2020. We actually had some injuries in 2020. And so we're challenging our group, and they know I will give them whatever they need, and I can't get into much of the technical stuff, Josh, but whatever systems or whatever programs that they need to improve our ability to get our players fit and ready to play, they will get. I think we're also going to challenge our players that this off season, they need to take care of themselves and take care of their bodies. And when the first day of training camp arrives, that they need to be ready to play and they need to be fit. I think in Florida, when we started this year, we didn't get that in all our players. And look, I think the pandemic had a lot to do with that. It was a bit uncharacteristic that you had a number of players that weren't ready for preseason, I would say. And I think that weighed on us and it weighed on our team. And when you're not fit, it leads to injuries. And so not all injuries can you prevent. But we're going to challenge our staff that we have to operate at a higher level, and also our players, that they need to be fit both physically and mentally to get through a long season. And we want to be a club that plays 40-plus games a year. We had done that 3 years straight. And so having your best players on the field allows you to play in 40-plus games because it means you're winning a lot of games.
We have room for 2 more questions. We'll go with John, and then John Molinaro, and then John Rojas. Go ahead, John Molinaro.
Thanks, Alejandro. Hey, Bill, you mentioned there previously in your answer to Mike Leach's question about the Argos and how pinball has really sort of rejuvenated the culture around the Argos. I'm curious what you make of the culture of the club at TFC right now, and do you think that there has to be a cultural sort of shift within the team?
Yes, I don't think we had a culture this year. And I think we've lost this amazing culture that we had built up over the years here at BMO Training Ground, and it was reflected on the field at BMO Field and wherever this team played. And I think we lost that. Look, I think we not only got a black eye, we got two black eyes when COVID hit, and it was really difficult on this club, and going through a transition like we did with a coaching change. Some of the culture that was built here evaporated very quickly, and the introduction of some players into the club and some of the guys that were here, it wasn't seamless. And so, you know, culture is a buzzword, but it's also real. And, you know, it comes down to togetherness, it comes down to alignment. I always look, you know, teams that win have fun. And there's a camaraderie there that is built not only within the locker room, but throughout the organization. And, you know, this is an organization, you know, and we take it serious when we talk about all for one. It's not just the 11 players on the field, it's everyone in the organization and the part that they play in giving the players everything and the coaches everything they need to do to win, whether it's the equipment staff or the kitchen staff, security, business ops, you know, to the players on the field. And so, for me, this is something we have to build back up, John. It's because we lost it, and like I said, it doesn't need to be the same like it was, but it is. It's just camaraderie, and it's togetherness, and it's being aligned. And I think with the direction we're going to go, and the people, starting with Bob. And just being back here at BMO Training Ground and having that start, I think will help us. I mean, today, and it's just a little thing, guys, but today is the first day we actually, in the kitchen, go back to silverware and plates as opposed to styrofoam. And just, it's a little thing, but it means something. And actually the ability to sit down in our cafeteria and eat together, we haven't been able to do that. And today is the first day we're doing that. And so it's the heart and soul of this club is right here at this training ground. And so I do believe we're going to build that culture back up to being a winning culture, a club that wants to compete for trophies. But we have some work to do, John, and we have a ways to go to get back there. And our results will be what dictates that.
And the final question goes to John Rojas. Go ahead.
Thanks, Alejandra. Bill, thanks for the time. I'm going to ask you on Jefferson Soteldo and his, situation with the club. There's this rumor in South America that he's not happy and he requested an option to get out of his contract. And there's supposedly Brazilian teams already trying to get into that situation. We all know that it's only months into his contract. But you mentioned before that every door is open around the club. So is this something that you guys are open, willing to, or is Jefferson someone that you definitely going to keep and he has to stay with his contract and TFC?
Look, if you gave me $1 for every rumor that came not true, I'd be a millionaire. Like, there's rumors all the time. You know, there was rumors about people that were going to be our coach. There's rumors about players that are going to join our club, and you know, I know Beezer's really good. He always sends me a note about, hey, is this true? Is this not true? And look, you're going to see lots of rumors, I'm sure. Some have some legitimacy, and a lot don't, frankly. You know, we have players under contract, and as I mentioned, everything is open though. And we're going to explore everything, and whether that's keeping players here or moving players on, we have to consider everything. And so, you know, as I mentioned with other players, you know, in Jefferson's case, he's under contract, and you know, we're gonna obviously spend a lot of time with Bob and how we're going to make over this roster, and everything is open. But just, you know, when it comes to rumors, I laugh sometimes because I'm like, where does this come from? And where do they get it? Because just often they're outright wrong, and so I just kind of, I don't put much stock in kind of what you're reading or what you're, what you're kind of alluding to. All right? All right, well, look, I would like to take this opportunity. Thank you, to everyone. It's good to see you in person. We haven't seen you in a long time, and I really look forward to having you all back here at training sessions and at BMO Field next year. I do want to take this opportunity to introduce Bob Bradley as our new head coach and sporting director. We're incredibly excited. It's going to be a new chapter for our club, and I want to have a chance to turn over the podium to Bob.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it, man.
Great to have you.
Okay,
Great
yeah.
to have you. We have a ceremonial jersey for you here. And
All right.
take that.
Where's the 4?
All right. There you go. All right. Awesome, Bob.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. I'll turn it over to Bob.
Is this your mask here, Bill?
That's my mask.
All right.
All right. All yours, Coach.
Good afternoon. What goes through my mind first is that in the discussions I had with Bill, and really in the incredible Zoom call with Mr. Tannenbaum, is just this pride of being in Toronto, what Toronto's all about. Sports City, obviously Mr. Tannenbaum talks about the Leafs, the Raptors, the Argos, and he talks about TFC with such pride. And as you can imagine, the last 8 years, I've paid close attention to everything that goes on in Toronto. And when I see, when I think back to days where I saw a full stadium, downtown stadium, that gives this connection to fans. Fans where you look and see diversity, and where you see the city, you see people from different backgrounds. You see a team that has players from different backgrounds, a team that can play football. What that meant to me and what that meant to my wife, Lindsay. The 8 years that Michael has been here, we have watched every game. I've watched most games more than once. So I really appreciate Toronto, the city, the connection that the club has with the city, and all that fits with ideas that I have developed over the years on the coaching end. A team that has identity, a team that has a playing style, a team that has players that you got to watch them, and man, you're going to go back and watch them again. You're excited. You see something that's special. You see a commitment on the field, a mentality. And wherever I've gone, I've just tried to go in without pretending I have all the answers, and to see if I can go in and take my ideas and turn it into something. The opportunity for me here also comes at an incredible time for the game in Canada. The national team so far in qualifying has played well. Again, you see a team with identity. You see how proud they are representing the country. The women's Olympic team that wins the gold medal. So the game is going in an incredible direction. Players, again, with different backgrounds. The Alphonso Davies story is amazing, just amazing. And so for me, the opportunity here, with a club that has that kind of opportunity every day, to be connected, everything from the first team, how do we play? Every team I've ever worked with, I really believe in what's our football look like when you come to watch us play? Are we exciting? Or do we create chances? When we lose the ball, what do we do to win it back? What kind of tempo do we play at? Those things mean a lot. That it goes hand in hand with then what kind of culture do you have every day, and when players show up, do they want to be coached? Do they want to get better? The best way to make a team better, the best way to have a good team is that you have guys that every day want to be coached, and you see guys getting better all the time. They are improving. They're getting better. So I think about that. I think about that not only as it pertains to the first team, but how it then connects to the second team and the academy. So there's a lot to do, but I started out just talking about the city and the incredible love that we have for Toronto, and then the opportunity to come here and get started. So I'm thrilled.
Bob, Neil Davidson from the Canadian Press, welcome to Toronto. As you said, you probably have as good a handle on this club as anybody outside it up until today, given your contacts. You've watched this team. What kind of team do you think you're inheriting? Because I think everybody thought this year, despite all the issues that the Canadian clubs and Toronto had to go through, this roster was better than it showed on the team. What kind of roster are you inheriting, and do you think it's a broken roster, a bruised one, needs tweaks? I know it's early days yet, but can you give us your sense of what you're inheriting?
I think there's a lot of work to be done. So when you evaluate a roster, it's one thing to do it on paper, and it's another thing to do it the way I described a few seconds ago, which is when they show up every day, what are they all about? How excited are they? When they step on the field, what happens? How committed are they to their teammates and the club? And look, there's all sorts of excuses for every team in the last 2 years. Life's been challenging, and it's been worse for the Canadian teams. But at a certain point, some sense as to how to raise the bar. It's a reset. It's a reset for everyone. It's a reset for the club, the identity. It's a reset to say to players, in some cases, you've had good days here, but where are you? Is this the right place for you? Are you committed? So that's the part where I said I don't have all the answers. I don't, all right? But there weren't enough times this year where there was a real commitment of every guy throughout the game, you know. That when you lose the ball, everybody's part of defending, that there's a real sense of how to make it hard on the other team, that there's this collective mentality and this collective push in the game. And so, again, I call that reset, but reset comes in different ways. So there's going to need to be some real discussions internally, and then some one-on-ones, and then an attempt to try to find the right way to move things along. Staying current, keeping up with the game all around the world. That's a challenge. It's a fun one. It's the one that I enjoy, but I think that's the task.
Hi, Bob. Steve Buffery from the Toronto Sun. Welcome to Toronto.
Thanks, Steve.
Of course, everybody's on a lot of people's minds in Toronto right now. How do you feel about coaching your son once again? And is that something that you've thought about over the years happening again, the chance to be with your son again while he's still a player?
I didn't know if I'd have the chance to coach Michael again. He and I have shared incredible moments in the game. And again, those moments they came when I coached him, but then they've come when we've been far apart, watching his games, talking to him. Again, I mentioned even the feeling of coming to Toronto. I mean, I was here for the final in 2017, my wife and I, and had great pride. Michael's in the back end of his career, and I'll be interested now to be able to, when training starts, find ways to continue to open up his mind for how he can get better, just like I will with every other player. To challenge him, to push him. I think you guys know he loves to play. He loves to compete. And I still think that in the right ways, he knows he wants to be coached. So I look forward to that and seeing where that gets us. I also know how committed he is to the club, the city. And that part speaks for itself. So, yeah, I'm excited. And the part of now coaching him again, pushing him, challenging him, seeing how he responds, that part for both of us will be great.
Bob, Kelsey Braid with TSN. My question for you is, you've coached throughout the world. You've had different influences and different roles as a coach, but now adding sporting director to this role in addition to coach, you look at this club and where it can go or where you want to get it back to. Does that present an exciting challenge for you at this stage where you're at in your coaching career?
Absolutely. I like what you said, too. You said where it can go and where it can get back to. And I actually think that's the key. It's both. To continue to move forward, you can't just look back. But to understand history and to be proud, you've got to have that. And you know, I've been really lucky. I mean, I've gone different places and had a chance to work with some incredible players. And I want to take all my experiences. From the different spots I've been, I think one of my strengths is figuring out how to engage people, how to engage players, how to engage staff, how to engage management. And so in the role that I have, I'm not one that, I've said it 3 or 4 times now, I don't have all the answers. But the ability to challenge people and to think about how we can grow again, right? What kind of football, what style, how to make players better, young guys that are exciting but now need to make more progress, how to put it all together, what's the style of play going to be, you know, and when I think of football, and I threw a few things out, there's always this mix between a team that has ideas when it has the ball, moves the ball quickly, creates chances, and then a team that also, as soon as it loses the ball, has an identity of what it wants to be, how it's going to win the ball back. Those things go hand in hand because your ability to win the ball in the right ways also leads to opportunities to go forward. Teams that know how to press and win the ball in good position, they do it for one reason. They do it to score goals. And now, for me, you have to really try to figure out with every group that you work with, how can we get this balance? And so I've watched games this year. I see the things that still come easy for TFC. But now, yeah, I have ideas on different players. I have ideas on areas where the team can improve. So that part I look forward to. And that's true both from a coaching standpoint and from the role of sporting director.
Hey, Bob. Joshua Cloak at The Athletic. Thinking about your extensive history in the game and thinking about the size of this undertaking, this rebuild that you're going to go through with this team, is there something in your experience, is there a team in your past that you've worked with that you think you can kind of compare or lean on that experience when looking at this Toronto FC team?
That is a really hard but good question, Josh. You know, I've had 2 projects. I'm not sure I want to use that word project. 2 opportunities in MLS to start teams from the beginning. Most recently, LAFC, all right? And I had a clear idea when I spoke to management and ownership. Here's the way I want to play. Here's the kind of players we want to have. Here's the football, here's, when we think about stars, here's kind of what's on my mind, right? And to see that come together in a special way, we had some incredible nights. Yeah, in the last 15 months or so, we struggled and lost our way a little bit. But the idea that we had at the beginning, I thought, were exciting and took off. That was very different than Chicago, all right? The league was in such a different point. So I'm going to just mention Chicago for a second, knowing that now that was also a new team. But I thought that there were similarities between, Chicago, the fan base, the way we were able at Chicago to find the right experienced guys and then the right players that were sort of had started their professional careers but were still early and wanted to get better and wanted to be in a certain kind of environment. And then the right younger players that could really grow in that setting. So I think a little bit about that. But I understand that it's also really different given now that this is not an empty whiteboard. This is a whiteboard that still has a lot of names and requires a lot of discussion. So I don't think anything matches perfectly.
We go next to John Molinaro. Go ahead, John.
Thanks, Alejandro. Hey, Bob. Welcome to Toronto. I'm not sure how much in the weeds you want to get in terms of, how the team is going to play. But I did have a tactical question I wanted to ask. Chris Armas used Michael a little bit differently in that he asked him to get around the ball more, to step more to plays and to cover ground in a different fashion, sort of to become more of a two-way midfielder, whereas Javier Perez deployed him more, as a traditional number 6 in his more natural position. I'm interested to hear your take. I mean, where do you see Michael as his best position, and how, can you say with any sort of certainty how you see using him next season?
I mentioned the importance of now seeing him on the training field every day, up close, coaching him. I think he's a versatile midfielder. A lot has to do with how the team plays. There were many days in the past where I'd watch TFC, and obviously the opponent would always know that the game ran through Michael. And you would see many, many games where somebody would just follow him around. And I would think that there needed to be a built-in idea in those moments that if the first pass couldn't go to Michael, then there's got to be somebody who's quickly available for the next pass. And now the game starts to have fluidity. So those games ring out to me. Chris had ideas of more pressing. And again, we spoke a second ago about the need to create some transition. So I think there were aspects to what Chris was trying to achieve that made sense. And yes, in some of those games, Michael's ability now to be more mobile. It's going to be fun to see how it plays out. There are these midfielders that we've all watched around the world that are in the same category as Michael. Again, not exactly the same, so not to be taken wrong. But whether we talk about Busquets or whether we talk about Xabi Alonso or Carrick or guys that their game, they were not ever pure destroyers. They were still players that made guys around them better, that had ideas on how to pass, how to give the team a rhythm, fluidity. But all of them, their roles and the way you use them depend so greatly on how the team plays. In this last stretch of years at Barcelona, Busquets had games where people were saying, nope, he's finished. And then you'd watch him play for Spain and you'd say, he's not finished. And now Xavi comes in and already this idea that he's an important part of the team continues. So this is what happens when you get to work. And so, no, I don't have the answer. I'm excited to see how it connects with different players. I thought there were some games this year where The understanding between Michael and Ralph Priso was really good. I've seen games, where still the midfield three in Toronto was all on the same page, and that was important. So, whether we're talking about Ralph, whether we're talking about continued development of Noble Okello, the best way to utilize Jonathan Osorio, you name it. These are things that only come when we start working. So I'm open to see the best way to move forward for the group.
Next, we have Michael Lidge. Go ahead.
Thanks, Alejandra. Bob, welcome to Toronto. Further to the Michael question, one thing that we've gotten to know about Michael over his time here in Toronto is that he does not like to watch. He doesn't like to be a spectator from the touchline. How do you balance maybe those times where your vision might not include having him in the starting 11, or maybe having to take him off in the middle of the game to sort of change up what you want to do with the team? How do you balance that sort of role of being his coach and his father at the same time? Is that difficult at all?
No, in that moment, I'm not his father. That's simple. It's the same way you deal with anybody. You have real conversations, real discussions, you make decisions. Nobody ever said when you're a manager that every player agrees with every decision. But how you make decisions, how you communicate, how you hold people to standards, that's that. Michael's a competitor. He wants to play all the time. By the time I get to know the whole group, I hope that every single guy is as competitive, wants to play, is ready for training, is ready to be pushed. That part is key. So, no, I don't foresee any issues there.
We have next Jeff Carlisle. Go ahead.
Thank you. Hello, Bob. Couple questions. You talked about the appeal of the city and the ownership. I was wondering if you could dig down into what was appealing about the Toronto job, just in terms of the role that you're going to play, being sporting director and manager, the team, et cetera. And as a second question, there have been a lot of reports about Josie's future with the club. What do you anticipate going forward in terms of, Josie's continued involvement with Toronto?
The Josie situation's unclear. That's been part of the problem. So it's been up in the air, and so it seems like it's just a cloud that lingers. So I'm sure that at some point there'll be discussions, and that part has to have clarity. What do I see? I see a great club. I see a city that loves its teams. I see ownership group. I said Mr. Tannenbaum's, just the way he talks about things. I mean, with everything he's done in his life, it's never about him. It's about the city. It's about his teams. Again, it resonated in such an incredible way. I really appreciated just that time that I spent speaking to him. And then I take my experiences, my ideas of how a team should play, how to create a culture, how to hold people to real standards. As a sport director, my ability to connect dots between the first team, the second team, the academy. Can there be some ideas in terms of how we play so that already young players coming through the academy, there's certain things that are worked on, and players are developed with the idea that they're going to become first team players at TFC. These things are so exciting for me. I mentioned Chicago, and this was a long time ago. That was pre-academy. Man, it was a different world. But we still were so excited about this mix of veteran players who loved the game, who still loved to compete, but who cared about young players, who came in every day, seeing Peter Novak and Lubos Kubik and Christos Stoichkov, seeing the way they were with Chris Armas and Jesse Marsh and C.J. Brown and Josh Wolf and Carlos Bocanegra and DeMarcus Beasley, like we had something going then. And even now, I'm always pretty proud when I look at the number of guys that were part of that group that are involved in the league and involved in the game today. So, Jeff, I think about all of that. I never get ahead of myself in this game. You know, I love the part of showing up every day to a club that has an identity, that has a connection to fans at a city. I love coming to a real training facility. This is an awesome training facility. I spent a lot of time at the training facility. And then I look forward to trying to get the right group of players, the right staff, the right people, and engage everybody around me every day. I mean, I've already spent a lot of time today with Justin Morrow, with Jason Hernandez and Devin Plur and some of the people that work here, just starting to talk about football, talking about things that are important to me and trying to connect some dots. So that's what I think about. I have never stopped loving that part, and that's my motivation every day.
Do we have any other questions for Bob? Okay, that's it. Thank you so much, Bob, and welcome to Toronto again.
Good. Thank you. Sure. Thanks, buddy. You want the front or the back? The back. The back. Okay. Oh, sorry. I'm going to do the front a little too, because the front's more important.